Hello everyone, my name's Sue York and I'd like to welcome you to this sponsored webinar. It's called The Who, What, Why and When of 2019 Consumers, and we're very pleased to have Jeff Tsui from Lightspeed come and share some interesting results of some research that they've been conducting. I'd now like to introduce you to Jeff, who'll be presenting his interesting findings.
Hi, this is Jeff Tsui from Lightspeed. It is my honor to be here today. The topic I'm presenting is the who, what, why, and when of 2019's consumers, by exploring ways for us to better understand the ever-changing consumers today, and quite possibly in the near future. Well, without saying, as technology advances, so does our consumers. This is true regardless of which country you're in or which life stage you're in, etc. We are all being impacted by this advancement of technology. As marketers and insights professionals, we all have to work in a way on the understanding of how today's customers behave, interact, and consume. There are 4 topics I want to briefly touch on today. The first one is the sharing of some top-line data from a recent 5-market study we ran, to better understand what the 2019 consumer landscape, such as how are people spending their time online nowadays, what are they buying, what devices they're using to buy, etc., etc. The second topic is about how we reach our ever time-poor consumers, which is very important for all of us. The third topic is about when we manage to reach such consumers, how do we talk and engage with them? Again, another very important topic. The final topic that I will present today is about what are some of the newer technologies market research is using or can adopt to achieve the above. Now, so firstly, how are people spending their time online today or nowadays? Here we see the social media is the most common online activity across all markets, followed by online shopping. And by what device is this happening? Our respondents confirm that smartphones are the mostly widely owned device, followed by laptops. And the majority of global consumers make their online purchase via laptop and desktop, followed by smartphones. However, this is quite different for Asian markets. India and Singapore, for example, online purchases are mostly done on smartphones instead. Maybe this is an indication to our marketers on, especially those who manage e-commerce sites, e-commerce companies. This might be an insight in itself. If we look at today versus say 5 years ago, we can see that laptop was popular alongside desktop computers. For the UK, however, we see that although smartphone and tablet purchasing have increased, laptop usage for making purchases have remained more or less stable. And in India and Singapore, while the growth of smartphone follows the same trend, Asia was also a step ahead 5 years ago, with a closer spread between smartphone and laptop and desktops, reflecting the adoption of mobile we all know is dominant in Asia. Well, now, we know how they are purchasing, but what are they actually purchasing from such e-commerce sites? The top 5 purchase categories were, number 1 is clothing, shoes, and accessories. 2 is holiday. 3 is toiletries and cosmetics. 4th is groceries. 5th is tickets, such as cinema tickets. Breaking this down, we found that females tend to purchase more clothing, shoes, and accessories, not a big surprise, as well as toiletries and cosmetics. While for men, compared to men, categories that require less purchase research, such as cinema tickets, music, takeaway food, etc., or done frequently, tend to be purchased online via smartphones. Items that require higher level of pre-purchase research or involvement, such as household appliances, furniture, or holidays, tends to be done via laptops rather than smartphone. And although smartphones are offering the sort of on-the-go purchasing, the couch and the bed are where people most often spend their online purchase from, notably in the UK from the couch. So they like to make their purchase in a very comfortable environment. While for people in India, it's sort of vary quite a bit, but they tend to do it doing this the most before, during, or after work. So we've now looked at what, how, when, and where consumers are purchasing online. But given that we first found social media is the most common online activity, is this having an influence on the decision-making process? Well, here we see that India, 54% reporting to have made a purchase because someone talked about it on social media, and Singapore at 31% are the most impacted. But that many respondents report to not have made a purchase directly from an advert on social media. In Australia, for example, it is as low as 11%. Right? So seeing it on or being advertised on social media, is that a guarantee success for selling your products or services? Maybe not. Well, broken down by category, we see that clothing, shoes, and accessories are the most impacted category by social media, whereas furniture and music, etc., are less so. And how are they making the financial transaction for this? I.e., how are they paying for it? Well, we see that Afterpay has been used most in India at 33%, and Australia at 20%. But it's at the low levels and primarily for clothing, shoes, and accessories, which could relate back to the immediacy of the social media influence and making an impulse purchase that can be paid for over a period of time. Groceries are notably high in India and Singapore, as well as takeaway food in Singapore as well. Mobile payment apps are far more commonly used, with Asia leading the way here. 82% from India and 55% from Singapore, saying that clothing, shoes, accessories are the highest here, where they paid via mobile payment apps. So what this is probably suggesting is the categories that have local brands enabling linkage between connected payment methods, but also suggest area for improvement for some other markets. Well, now I'm moving on to the second topic, personality profiling. Traditionally, most of the market research done are segmented by basic demographics. Yet in the next few slides, I want to show you some brief examples which we believe personality profiling is equally, if not more important. Well, this piece of research is done by our VP in Innovations, Mr. John Poston. We've been exploring ways on how we can enable more effective audience segmentation to get a richer view to power marketing communication strategies. With the advancements in behavioral science theories, combining that with the more sophisticated consumer targeting techniques, we believe that it is now opens up new opportunities for marketers to develop more impactful brand communication strategy. Moving to put it in practical terms, I think, in the advertising world, the tendency is we're moving away from a one message to one audience type tactics towards a more tailored message, tailored for specific audiences, by understanding their personality profiles. Well, here are some examples. By knowing and asking a range of behavioral reality questions, we can segment people into finer groups or different personality style, etc. This, we believe, can overcome, for example, self-report bias, which can be occasionally found in traditional ways of attitudinal type questions we use in market research. Well, here are some preliminary results so far. For example, we know that by differentiating people in real-world decision-making situation, it describes and helps us to understand better behavioral characteristics. We can also use the same technique to differentiate the types of people who like different types of advertising messages, etc. This approach to the design of the surveys has proved to be very successful. The surveys has been achieving exceptionally high rates, 95%, and respondent ratings of 96%, and some of the best feedback from our respondents that we have ever recorded. Because our respondents are enjoying taking this survey, we're finding they're putting more thoughts into their answers, and this is resulting in less random answers in the data, and so more clearly differentiate the matrix. It has taken over 6 months of research on research to test and calibrate. How we have been testing it has been to ask some real-world questions to see how our more refined personality measures can explain these behaviors. For example, to test the agreeableness, we asked people to tell us the features requirement for phone, and found that people with low levels with agreeableness were significantly more fussy. A lot of the results from our tests and experiment could be described as self-confirming and not necessarily surprising. Highly consultative people, for example, are more regular voters, are more likely to have made a will, to make their bed in the morning, to keep receipts when they're going shopping, stick to the monthly budget, get into the work early, plan out their meals in advance, read a review before watching a film, doable. Basically, these are the group of people who tends to be a bit more cautious. They like to plan things in advance before they actually take actions. Now, thinking about the bigger picture, this always-on connected consumer reality that we are all facing I believe, gives our industry so much more opportunity. In a world where technology allows us to be connected anywhere and anytime, the way consumers are going about their lives have fundamentally changed too. Not only does this matter to brands, but in market research, it is very important that we both recognize and respond to this, so we are reaching a respondent base that is reflective of consumers today. This means our ability to tap into this always-on audiences needs to be broad enough not to miss the key groups. Well, while some audiences might be interested in signing up for a traditional double opt-in market research panel, others might be found utilizing the newer programmatic sourcing technologies that we now offer. Well, when marrying the two, but keeping permission-based standard at the heart of what we do, we believe this ensures a broader, more accurate view of today's consumer. The key is to maximize opportunities provided by the connected consumer rather than risk narrowing our research data. And just as this technological shift is driven by consumers adapting technology, the same can be said for the platform. By tapping into local, established platforms that can reach consumers, can maximize the leveraging and existing relationship and familiarity respondents have. For example, in China, through WeChat, China's most popular social messaging, media, and mobile payment app, we at Lightspeed offers access to a highly engaged, representative mobile audience in China. There are now more than 1 billion active users using WeChat in China, which really, what it means is it provides us a new and consumer-centric way to engage respondents on a continuous basis, building a more robust, engaged community for brands. Why? I mean, the simple reason is because this is where many Chinese consumers interact nowadays, and already this is something that is deep in their root. So WeChat is being used a lot more wider than just market research. So as you have seen, there are many ways to extend surveys out to consumers nowadays, but then it is critical to ensure we're talking to them in a way that will bring around an engaged, considered response that ultimately delivers the rich and reliable data that we all want to hear. Which means the way you engage this highly active but time-poor audience should be a huge part of any research planning. we must face the reality that we are all fighting for attention here, as there are many distractions or things to do online. Even small changes in questioning techniques can yield huge differences in data. Here are two basic examples. One is comparing the results that we get from a fixed versus comparative scales technique. The second here is a simple brand recall question. The old way could be, it's all about, oh, how many brands can you think of? How many brands can you name? But the new way, we put the challenge back into the mind of the respondent. Hey, you have 1 minute to name all the brands you can think of. Suddenly, the results shows a huge difference. Well, now, the look and feel and the entire respondent experience needs to be spot on. As I said earlier on, we are fighting for attention here. Survey respondents are not very forgiving nowadays. A boring or long questionnaire with statements after statements, I can guarantee you that you will get very high dropout rate. Even for those who manage to stay till the end, they are more than likely to have data quality issues. Take Lightspeed, for example. We now have a suite of well-designed questions template we call questionnaires, where we use a lot of visuals, we use a lot of questioning techniques to ensure that the experience to the respondents is spot on. It's similar to how they would engage with the outside world, right? It's not there isn't a lot of words. There are a lot of interactive functions built into it. What this results in is a high dropout rate and also good quality data. For the last part of my sharing today, I will briefly touch on some of the newer technologies we are using in market research, in particular on the data collection side. I guess one overriding trend is there seems to be a lot of these newer technologies which have an objective to try and bridge the gap between traditional quantitative and traditional qualitative studies. And also another point I noted here, based on the recent innovations I've seen, is, well, for a lot of these technologies, our industry or market research did not invent the technology in itself. It's about, where the art is how we applied and utilize such technologies that is fit for purpose. So here are a few examples. The left-hand side is traditional self-completion digital data collection methods, be it on laptop or mobile or tablets. Now we're moving away from that to searching for existing data that we may already have, to connecting different data sets or different data sources to make it more insightful, and also using third-party data out there to append to what we can find from surveys, etc., to things like video open-ended response. So we're giving the choice back to the respondent. If they want to answer open-ended questions by typing into a text box, feel free, you can do that. You can record your voice verbatim using the function on your mobile phone. Feel free. You can record a short video and submit to us. You can do that as well. The choice belongs to the respondent who have agreed to spend time with us. There are other technologies which are more established, such as facial coding or mobile metering to track some of the more passive type behavior online, and more lately about the use of the smart speakers, and also about chatbots. Now, I'm going to move on to an example that we have done ourselves on using chatbot. So this part here is a very simple example. We have probably have used chatbot ourselves as consumers when we go on a website, when we interact with a brand, when we have something to ask about. We go on a website and there's a chatbot there. But how do we apply that or use that in market research? So we've done a trial recently, and it seems to have worked out pretty well. The end client that we work with is a fashion brand. Their business objective is rather simple. They want a very detailed view into specific dressing habits and their daily routine of their target audiences. So what we did is we brought in we used the technology of Chatbot and put that into our WeChat panel in China to create a more conversational environment for our respondents. The result is there were more than 80 respondents who have not just only given us some very in-depth answer through the chatting with our bots, with our chatbot, but they have also uploaded more than 3+ videos or photos of their wardrobes in the real time where they were interacting with our bot, which really gave the end client a lot of insights into what they're looking for. And don't forget, this all happens in a real-time environment. And from a respondent standpoint, they feel like this is more of a conversation. They are more willing to share. It's not just a survey. And to our surprise, I mean, the overall duration or the average duration is actually a lot longer than we initially thought. I mean, the duration of interaction with the respondent. And surprisingly, the dropout rate is very, very low. So what this indicates to us is the respondents are really enjoying this type of engagement. They feel like they're chatting to someone that is real. So to summarize, we know that a lot is changing for the consumer. And so too, for market research, we are presented with an opportunity to revolutionize the understanding of consumers through the leaps and bounds of technologies is making. Whether it's by rethinking our approach to sampling, modernizing surveys, or using new tools or technologies to get a consumer opinion, this is an exciting time with vast opportunity for all of us. Well, here I've only touched on a broad overview, but my colleague Jason Dolch from our US team, he's a data expert from our US team, will share more specific examples of the data technologies available to us all now in the Festival of NewMR next week. Well, I hope today this gives you the inspiration and the means to help us all future-proof our industry and achieve bigger and better consumer understanding in this changing world. Thank you.
Jeff, thank you so much for that really interesting presentation. I'm sure the audience have enjoyed it. So I've got questions flooding in from a variety of channels. So Jeff, you mentioned, how did you reach the profiling of personality methodology? You mentioned some of the ways to ask questions, but could you explain that process in a bit more detail for the audience?
Sure, no problem, Sue. I mean, I think that's a very good question. I mean, it certainly has, many components in it. I mean, ideally, you would want to measure as many personality traits and thinking styles in one go as you can. As there's a kind of a great deal of interdependency between the different personality traits. One personality matrix can be used to understand the emotional drivers of another thinking style. For example, how future-focused someone is really can help, decipher the levels of consultativeness of an individual and vice versa. I mean, we have been looking at how to optimize multiple personality measurement techniques together more effectively, by using the sort of intelligence gathered from each question to optimize what question to ask next. For example, if someone tells us they are chatty and talkative, we don't necessarily need to ask them, if they're quiet or reserved, right? I mean, using this thinking, we have been able to develop a multi-dimensional test where each respondent has a unique path through the survey, meaning we can ask a much greater range of questions and mine multiple personality traits in one single survey, which is quite important. Yes, as I said earlier on, everyone is time poor. If we have the opportunity to engage with one, we should make the best use of it. There's now 6 months sort of into development, and with another fewer months of trialing, we shall be releasing a full paper, of this approach that would provide full details of the way to use this in practice. So yeah, I mean, keep an eye out for that later on this year.
That sounds fantastic. So we've talked about a range of new tools. What do you think are the biggest opportunities for researchers in the short term and in the medium and longer term, if you wanted to add those as well?
Yeah, I think another great question. When we look back at the slide that I presented earlier, I mean, there's a multitude of tools and data collection methods that we can use nowadays, which I guess we're quite lucky about that, thanks to the advancement of technology. What I think would be exciting is really about coming up with a sort of a connected consumer office, right? We are, more than ever in a space where consumers at our fingertips and with their permission, which is very important, by the way, allowing us to understand the many levels of things that are happening in their life. So we have to sort of respect them. So we at Lightspeed, we always have to think of, respondent come first. We would not ever do things that they don't like or didn't agree. So I think that there's the opportunity to me is really about leveraging this, all these new technologies and, to better help brands to understand their audiences.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. I've got a specific question here on chatbots, and somebody wondering whether they are run via AI or via a live moderator.
It's run via AI. So the way that chatbot currently works, or based on the trial that we have done, is you have to insert the chatbot technology into a messaging tools. So in China, it is WeChat. In places where Facebook is available, you can also do that via Facebook Messenger. So the technology of chatbot is actually quite established. Yet the application of chatbot in market research is still to me, I think is still a relatively new idea, a new area. Based on the trial or the case study that I've shown, I think there are definitely some comparative advantages of using chatbot over some other more traditional methodologies. So yeah, I mean, to answer the question again, it's run via AI.
And I think, Jeff, we'll probably find that an expanding area, and I think there's some interesting ways to think about how you'd use a chatbot in terms of, is it an enhancement in the qualitative space, or is it something that we're using in the quantitative space? And I think depending on how you sort of harness that technology, you've got some options there as well. We're also been thinking about other technologies, and I know you've sort of outlined, some of your forward thinking. Is there anything else that you think is, on that horizon that we can be thinking about preparing to use?
Yeah, I think on a sort of broader level, I think there's a lot of opportunities between collaborations of market research agencies or insights experts with media agencies. One area could be about activating the data for better advertising marketing. And also, especially in the US, the rise of smart speakers, that could be another area where we could think how market research can utilize that. And also, chatbots I've mentioned, because, again, back to the chatbot experience, we market research industry, we didn't invent chatbot. We're just, how should I say, following the trend in a way, because we can, as a consumer, as a respondent, I mean, they're using Facebook messengers or WhatsApp or WeChat almost every day. I mean, that's the way of how modern people are communicating with other people. I mean, this, I believe, is the same. We have to create a natural environment, through a chat, you could call it a channel or a technology or a platform that our respondents are comfortable with sharing with us the very important insights or opinions that they have to share. So again, it's about respondent first. We will be in places where our respondents are. I think that's the real key. Well, last but not least, I think there has been some talk about it. The blockchain technologies. We can now see that quite a few other industries are using it. Those in finance. It's quite obvious. With how they're using it. But I think as a prediction, let's say, I think there is an area for us in market research or the data collection side of our business to utilize some form of blockchain technologies to enhance the quality of our respondents and our data. So I see there's a close correlation between blockchain and quality in our research.
Yes, you've certainly touched on a wide variety of things there, and I just wanted to come back to that idea we got to on chatbot. And I think that's one of the really nice things about it is it's us starting to talk to consumers in ways, or respondents in ways that they're familiar with, rather than us teaching them to do things the way we want them to do it. So I think it's got that lovely fit with us meeting participants where they'd like to be spoken to and talking to them in the language and with the tools that they're used to, rather than imposing some other ideas on it. So I think we're going to see a lot of studies and conference papers and things on chatbots this year, which is going to be really exciting. And I guess Lightspeed will be doing some more experiments in different parts of the world, because I think we'll probably, start to see those things used in different ways in different countries. For example, in China, you'll be harnessing WeChat fairly strongly, whereas in other parts of the world, there'll be other things that you can dip into as well.
Exactly. That's very much right. I think, a broader point, I think, is a lot of the, what's going to happen in the future is about partnerships, is about, in certain way, localization as well. I mean, there's another important thing that, a one-size-fit-all strategy, I don't think it will work. Like what you said, China is WeChat, Korea might be Line, somewhere else might be Facebook. So we just have to think of how we can utilize such tools as platforms to make it fit for our purpose.
That's right, and it's going to make for some really interesting work for sort of people who do smart things with analytics, particularly in the realm of global projects, where you're going to say, right, well, we did the work the best way it was to be done in China, we did it the most appropriate way in Japan, we did it the most appropriate way in the US, but then somebody's going to have to put their thinking caps on and work out, what's the best way then to pull these data sets together when we're trying to do comparative work as well. So it's probably a pretty exciting time to be in international research as well.
Absolutely, I think so. I mean, that's the, I see that as a very important criteria of any, successful researcher, to be honest. That international mindset and also exposures. Is really understanding the local nuances, from different angles.
Yeah. And again, I think kind of your theme around partnerships as well. If you need to do work with tools that you're not used to, or in environments that you're not familiar with, having the right partners is going to be so important. Now, whether that's local knowledge, technology knowledge, or something else, I think increasingly we're going to be trying to pool the skill sets of teams of people to really get that, right approach together for everybody.
Exactly.
Thanks for a fabulous Q&A, Jeff. That's we've covered a pretty broad area of territory, and I think there's been some interesting questions and some interesting answers there.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much, Jeff, for sharing your really interesting recent research with us. And we hope to see you at an upcoming NewMR event soon.